This is Peter Tosto. I'm with ClassWorx and Find It, and today we have Scott Benson, who's our guest. Scott and I have gotten to know each other over the last couple of months, and I wanted to invite him on to ClassWorx for our first interview. And Scott's here. His company is Agro Capital Management, and I want Scott to just kind of give us an introduction of himself and a little bit about Agro Capital Management. We'll dig a little bit deeper.
Well, Peter, thanks for the opportunity to meet with you on the platform. Excited to talk to you about what it is we're doing in the space, and answer any questions the audience has, and share a little bit about what we're doing, because we're excited. We're excited about what the future holds.
That's great. Can you give us an overview about Agro Capital Management, and if you want to get into the subsidiaries, feel free.
Sure. So Agro Capital, so we're on the OTC exchange. We're listed as ACMB, and if you go and take a look at it, know that we're in the process of becoming a fully reporting, fully audited company. We've got an audit team that's going through our financials as we speak. We've hired our legal team that's going to file our S1. And so you'll be seeing changes as we move up in terms of status on the OTC markets over a period of time. But as a company, outside of the listing and how we're set up from that perspective, the company itself is really committed to providing long-term shareholder value by focusing on mergers and acquisitions that are specifically in the cannabis space. And we're looking for companies that are fully operational, fully licensed, that we can take advantage of, and we can leverage the expertise that exists within our company to help them execute on that business plan and bring tech to the table that helps them facilitate a strong position in the marketplace overall. And we do that in a couple of different ways. Our first acquisition, I should say, was Apex Solutions. And Apex is a California manufacturer and distributor of product. And they really fit the mold of what it is we're looking for. They're very focused on customer value. So they've got a product that we believe is one of the best in the marketplace for a very mid-tier kind of price point. So the value for the consumer is there, which we believe long-term will create a very, very strong following of the product itself that we can capitalize on in other markets.
Can I jump in on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So leading up to my next question, you just mentioned the consumer and the product. Can you give us and the listeners kind of an idea of who your consumers are? You mentioned the price point and a little description of the product so that they kind of have an idea. When you do this every day, you know who the consumer is, the product is. We want to let them know who's your consumer, the product, and the price point.
Sure. So I'll start with who the consumer is for us. So in the California market, you're limited. You can't go direct to consumer. So we sell through retail outlets, and that would either be a store, a physical store, or a home delivery business. That's where we sell our product. But really the end consumer, and that's really where we're focused, is that experience for the end consumer. They tend to be a more sophisticated kind of consumer, because, and let me start with what manufacturing is, because a lot of people, they think cannabis manufacturing, what does that even mean? So you've got growers, they're growing the product, they're growing flower, and we've all kind of seen that. We know what that is, and pre-rolls and other ways that it can be consumed. But a manufacturer in the space takes that raw material and creates an oil from it. And there tend to be two types of manufacturers in the space. One that is focused on a distillate, and what a distillate is it's a oil that has been stripped of all the terpenes. It's very, very high concentrated material of THC, and it's almost like the grain alcohol of cannabis, right? So it's very, very high THC, but you don't have all of the terpenes that kind of give cannabis the traditional experience that people can relate to, that differ by strain. We, on the other hand, we're not focused on distillate, we're focused on the live resin, the fine oil. And just as consumers have been focused more on fine wines over time, their palate becomes more sophisticated. We expect to see the same thing in the cannabis space. We think we are where the market, the leading edge of the market is, and where the market will overall be going. I also should say too, that from a health perspective, we believe as more and more consumers are focused on the health side in terms of the way in which the product is consumed, we love the experience that people get when consuming the natural flower product. But unfortunately, you're also consuming plant material. When you take a live resin oil, that oil, you've stripped all the plant material out, and all you're left with is the full cannabinoid profile and the full terpene profile. So we believe it's the healthiest way to consume the product and really get that full experience that is available when you haven't adulterated it by adding other things to the mix.
So let me just elaborate a little bit on that. So you're not allowed to sell to the end consumer, which is the individual person.
Right.
Based on okay. So your customer as a company are wholesale and retail distributors. Is that correct?
We're actually a distributor in the state. So we have a sales team and distribution here, but that distribution channel is set up very similar to the way alcohol brands are set up. They can't then sell typically directly to the consumer. So we have to go to the cannabis retailer, and there are a large number of them in California. There's about 1,200 now in the state in terms of licensed. There's only about 700 that are really operational, and a large chunk of that is home delivery as opposed to a retail store.
So they're buying the product from you, and then they're selling your product. Now, is your product that you're selling to them, can they white label it, private label it, or are they selling your brand?
So once it gets to that that end retailer, at that point it's packaged and branded for whoever we're branding material for. We do some white label product manufacturing for some of the biggest labels in the state. But the majority of our product is sold under our brand name, which is Apex. So
if a retail cannabis distributor in the state of California wanted to carry your product, they could reach out to you via the website and contact you to become a distributor of your products. Is that correct?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So we have a website, which is apexextractions.com. For people that are looking specifically for our brand. There's also a market tool called LeafLink, and LeafLink is used by a host of retailers to find the brands that they're looking for. And we welcome the opportunities for other brands to seek us out. We have local sales force in every major city within California that can help get our product to market and in the consumer's hands.
So that brings me to literally my next question. You mentioned in California, and is currently the products that you are selling, are they only legal right now in California? And if so, how much of the market is left for you to capture? And then the second part of that question would be, do you see any other states coming on where you'll be able to expand into those states?
Right. That's a good question. So within California, there's a tremendous amount of expansion opportunity here alone. If you look at the projections by those that really track the space through 2025, it's really an exponential growth rate expected in the space. And I think part of that is because there's still a very healthy underground marketplace right now. And that market over time is transitioning to this legal market. So we really see two factors driving the growth in California. One is that transition from underground to legal market, and the other is new consumers coming into the marketplace. And those new consumers that come into the marketplace, they're typically starting with that, let's call it unsophisticated kind of distillate oil, but then over time they move up to a more sophisticated product like the one that we're producing. That's within the state of California, and that has the potential to significantly impact our revenue stream in a very positive way. But then in addition to that, we're looking at other states. And right now we have discussions underway in Nevada, Washington, Oklahoma, And then we've got discussions underway with entities in New York and Georgia that are seeking licensing. And the intent is to bring our management and manufacturing expertise to those states, as well as our brand. And then some of the brands that we currently white label, we'll bring those also into those states. And we'll be doing that with raw material that's grown in the state from which we are operating. So that will always come from the state. That's because the product can't cross state lines at this point.
So me, I do a lot, like I'm a very analytical person. I draw a lot of comparisons to things. So if you were looking at the cannabis space that you're very involved with, and you were going back in time, where would you say that we are in the cannabis space compared to either the internet sector in the 90s or another sector maybe? Where do you see us as far as the stage that we're at now in the cannabis space? Mm-hmm. And where do you see where do you see it evolving into? And one more thing, like,
yeah,
with you being, are you ahead of the curve as far as these other states come on? What role will you play, you know, to be able to, will you be able to jump into those other states, or do you have to have a business in that state in order to jump in?
Well, in other states, we're really looking for partners to team up with, someone that has a local presence in the state that we can leverage. Give you an example. So the partner that we're looking to work with in Oklahoma, they already have a distribution license. They already own several retailers, and they're already growing product in the state. But what they lack is manufacturing expertise and a brand in that space. So we're going to partner up with them to bring our product and that expertise into the space. And ideally, that's the same kind of setup we would see in other states, because our focus and attention has really been on manufacturing, becoming the most efficient manufacturer in the space that's producing consistently a high quality product. That's really been where the focus is. Now, there was another part of your question I want to make sure that I addressed.
No, it's fine. So like, if you were making a comparison to the cannabis space to the internet space.
Yeah, thank you.
And the reason I use the internet is because most people that are probably on or that will listen to this were maybe alive back then. If we go further back, sure, they might not have been around, so they have nothing to compare it to.
So if you think about the internet space, you know, as there started to get more media attention to the potential value that could be created in the space, you saw a lot of money pour into the market, and a lot of that and those initial dollars were not necessarily well spent. So you saw a lot of those companies create tremendous value in terms of the market and then flame out and die down the road. I think we've seen a lot of that experience when it comes to cannabis. But then over time, just as with the internet, I think in cannabis, you see those operators that are really focused on more traditional business metrics and getting to profitability. And one of the things that we've done with the acquisition of Apex is we focused on a company that has a very clear pathway to ongoing and consistent profitability. And that's what we want to leverage over time. And just as what we saw with the internet, which was those companies that did focus on a specific segment of the market. I mean, and Google's a classic example. I mean, they went after just one segment, which was search. They did it better than anybody else. We want to do the same thing when it comes to cannabis. In our sector of the market, manufacturing, we want to be the best manufacturer specifically in this space with the best products on the market.
Scott, I want to ask you one last thing before we go. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but if there was three main things that you would want people to take away from after hearing the interview, maybe they're not going to have access to you, you know, after this, unless, you know, they can reach out to you. I know that you're available, but what are the three main things that you want people to know about Agro?
Yeah, I would say first and foremost is we've got a team of proven professionals that know how to execute, and you know, execution in any industry is critical, and those professionals come from traditional business backgrounds as well as the cannabis industry background, and I think it's really important to have that combination of expertise within your organization, because both sides of that equation I think are equally important. And we put an emphasis on keeping that balance within our organization. I think the other one, I would say the number two issue that I want people to remember is that we're really focused on providing the highest quality product for our consumer. So we're not looking at the get rich quick, maximizing margin. That's not where we're at. We want brand value over the long haul. And that's been a big focus of ours for both the consumer product that we're providing, as well as white label manufacturing to other brands that are in the market. And then last, I would say, know that our team is really focused on creating value for our shareholders. That's a key. That's something that isn't part of every internal discussion that we have when our management team gets together. We look at what does that mean, how can we facilitate it, and where do we need to focus our long-term strategy in order to provide that for our investors.
Thank you, Scott. If you could you please give out your website address again for where people can go and find out more information? And if you want to give out your symbol so that people can look up your information there too, please do so.
Sure. So you can find some basic information on us on the OTC Markets site. We are ACMB, Alpha Charlie Mary Beth Agro Capital Management Board, I guess maybe is what you would say for the last. And then our website is acmbinc.com. And those would be the two best sources for information.
Scott, I want to thank you so much for joining us today and being so concise with your answers. I hope that everyone got some value out of it. We'll be putting this video up in the next day or two. And if there's any questions, you can email me or call me. And then if someone wants to get a hold of Scott, you can reach out to me, or you can send Scott a request through his website. Thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Peter.
You got it. Bye-bye.
Bye.